And now it's my turn. This is, I am going to talk about a koan, which is probably a really dumb idea to do given a tight time constraint. So I will not do it justice. But here goes. I have felt for a long time that there are a bunch of screaming monkeys inside of my head, and together they make me. I ping back and forth. I mean, maybe there's a veneer that holds it all together. There is a poem, Epistle 2, Essay on Man, Epistle 2 by Alexander Pope, was 1688, 1744, English poet and satirist, that I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read a few lines from the beginning of it, talking about us, and this I think captures what I feel like oftentimes. A being darkly wise and rudely great, with too much weakness for the Stoic's pride, he hangs between in doubt to act or rest, in doubt to deem himself a god or beast, in doubt his mind or body to prefer, chaos of thought and passion all confused, great lord of all things, yet a prey to all, sole judge of truth, and endless error hurled, the glory, jest, and riddle of the world. When I first heard this, I said, he's talking about me. Not as bad as that, but there is just a lot of stuff, and it seems like there's little common denominator, and I think that's true of all of us. I mean, we just have this chaotic jumble of thoughts that go on, and out of that something emerges, and then we move forward on that, and that is why people as a whole are so resourceful, is just because we've got this giant morass of stuff underneath us, and then stuff floats to the surface. Last summer, or late last summer or last fall, I came across a koan. This is from the Blue Cliff record. Chin Shan's one arrow point smashes the three barriers. This was pointed out to me by a podcast I listened to from the Zen Mountain Monastery. Jeffrey Shugen Roshi was the speaker. And if you're looking for podcasts, this is in the Soto Zen tradition. He is wonderful. He's just a great speaker. So I'm just going to briefly read the beginning. The pointer is kind of like a preface, and then I'll read the case. And then I'll just talk about it a little bit. And I have a couple of other props to share. But the pointer, I'll just paraphrase. He talks about the value of direct experience, that there is no transmission of mind. There is no teaching. And there are other sayings, Dharma sayings, where I've said nothing, meaning that what people say can point to things, but they aren't anything in themselves. What is important and what we're aiming for is the direct experience, the realization of this inherent nature. Then the second thing he talks about, right now, where does seeing and not seeing, hearing and not hearing come from, etc. And basically there, he's just talking about the coming and going of these dualities and where do they come from, but and alludes to the fact that they arise from this primordial ancestor that's within us. He also talks about entangling vines, which is a really apt metaphor, descriptive metaphor. Entangling vines are just the mental formations that we cling to in our samsaric world. The case itself, I will read this and with also interject some comments about it as I read it. Chan traveler Liang asked Chinshan, how is it when a single arrowhead smashes three barriers? What he's getting at there is a single arrow. So barriers can be anything. There's three in this case, but they don't have to be three. They can be, the Buddha, Dharma, the Sangha, even. So a positive thing, past, present, and future, sensual desire, existence, non-existence, any obstacle that we have that blocks us from our goal of awakening is a barrier. And then what is an arrowhead? Well, that's the technique, the thought, that whatever it is that gets you past that barrier or turns the barrier into not a barrier. So Shan said in response to that question, bring out the Lord within the three barriers for me to see. So, tell me what this barrier is. And at that, Lian realizes that there is no master in there. This thing, this big boogeyman that's in this barrier is not really that. And what he needs to do is just stop imbuing it with more than what's actually there. So he says, so then knowing my fault, I must change. So he's taking responsibility for himself. And Shan replies, "Why wait any longer?" But then Liang kind of backs away from it a little bit. And he says, "A well-shot arrow doesn't hit anywhere," meaning your words may be true, but I can't hear them right now. And he turns to leave. Shan then says to him, "Come here a minute." Liang turned his head. Shan held him tight and he said, "Leaving aside for a moment a single arrowhead smashing 3 barriers, let me see you shoot an arrow." So despite what I said, ignore all of that. Just tell me something that's true right now, something that's true that comes from your heart. Tell me. Liang hesitated, and so Shan hit him 7 times and said, "I'll allow, as this fellow will be doubting for 30 more years. So Liang hesitated. Some of my comments on this. As I said, the barriers can be anything. So how do you get past this? How do you bring this out? What is the arrowhead that can break through the barriers? And for that, what resonates for me is a quote from the Fukan Zenji, and I'll just read a little bit. "Cease from the practice of intellectual understanding, pursuing words and following after speech, and learn the backward step that turns your light inward to eliminate yourself. Body and mind of themselves will drop away, and your original face will be manifested. If you want to attain suchness, you should practice suchness without delay." So that is a very powerful arrowhead, and that can go break through the entanglement. So what is this barrier? Another definition of the barrier is the entangled mental formations that we cling to. The interesting thing is the barrier thinks it's the master, and it has a powerful story. It has a history. Everything that you're involved with, this story that's spun up in your mind, is very strong, and our common reactions to it are to suppress it, to deny it, so avoidance, or to say, "Hey, this really is me," and kind of embrace it. But a better choice is to transform it. And you transform it from this barrier for you to just what it is, nothing more. So then that kind of brings up the question, or asks the question, what is this master that we're looking for, that we mistakenly think is in this barrier, but what is the ultimate master that we're seeking out? And I had struggled with how to put this into words, but one thing that came up was it's that small, quiet voice, that whisper that's not quite audible, that thing is your original nature. So it's this connection you have to your Buddha nature. It's the voice of God. It's all of those things. The podcast that sparked all of this in me, Jeffrey Shooting Arnold, closed with a poem, and I'll do the same, and then I'll actually blatantly plagiarize some of his words. "One arrow liberates the many barriers. A single barrier is not freed by 100 arrows. Having pierced the one, still others seem to appear. So become at ease with shooting and not shooting. Either way, you are never standing apart. The primordial mind is fresh and new today and always. Because it's large and boundless, all the sickness, all the medicine live peacefully, like fireflies in darkness, dancing together in the summer night sky." Dancing together in the summer night sky. So that was the Buddha's realization. That is prajna paramita. That's what we're speaking of when we speak of the non-dual. Why is there so much lack of peace within sickness and medicine? Bring out the master from within that very question for all of us to see. That's what practice is, and that's what the direct path is. Thank you. And I did the worst on time.
Ted bowing in. Thank you for that, Craig. I've poked my nose into the Blue Cliff record a few times too. It's a lengthy thing. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but there's some great messages in there. I like it. It reminds me of the phrase from the Heart Sutra about because there's no attainment, there are no obstacles. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it kind of jives with my personal experience. Of course, I run into barriers all the time, things that I think are impediments, problems. I need to figure out how to break through them. But just out of personal experience, what usually happens, sometimes I don't get through them at all. That happens. But many times, when I see them for what they are, kind of step outside of them and don't become personally involved and just go, oh, this is what's happening right now. You know, a relative is having a hard time and lashing out and just seems to be nothing I can do about it. But when I see it for what it is, it just kind of dissolves. And it goes from, what's happened is my mind has shifted more than the situation has changed. My mind has gone to, oh, this is just the way this is unfolding right now. But I'm viewing it as a big problem and something I have to solve. And then when I stop viewing it as a big problem, something I have to solve, it will just work out somehow through direct immediate experience. Then the barrier kind of disappears. So I don't know, it's really, I like the way that this is captured. And yeah, I mean, I guess wisdom is seeing things as they really are. But when I'm stuck in a barrier, I'm probably not seeing things as they really are. I'm getting personally invested in it. And I have a horse in the race and I want it to come out a certain way. And I realize, oh, I've got an attachment. I mean, sometimes the real breakthrough for me is, I think I've got an attachment going on here. You know, and then it's not really an attachment once I see that. But yeah, it's a great thing. And I love the fact that the process for us is the same as it was in you know, China 1,000 years ago, you know, no different. So thank you so much. Ted bowing out.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the Heart Sutra, because there is no attainment. There's nothing. I mean, there's no longer a you there. So this just. I also like the term luminosity. That seems to like capture when the you disappears, and it's just like this, you know, just being alive and being in the moment. And there is a luminousness to that. So, thank you.
Jeff bowing in. So I don't want to take time to go over it now, but I assume in your follow-up email you'll have the references you mentioned, the original essay, the podcast, the other ones. I'd very much like to take a look at those sometime at my own leisure.
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
Thank you. So the other thing I just want to ask for clarification, I think as far as the master, it was used in a couple different ways. So partially what I heard was that looking at the barriers, that part of the koan asked, where's the master? Can the master come out from the barriers? And then realizing the barriers had no master, so the barriers were really kind of insubstantial and not really barriers at all. That was one way of talking about the master, but then I think you also talked about someone's process of kind of looking for the internal master, perhaps your own, Buddha nature. So I think those were two different, but I was slightly confused. So maybe you could clarify that just a little. Thank you.
Sure. I'm slightly confused also. I mean, koans are weird, and I did read a little bit about the history of them, and they're I mean, they were originally written like in 900, at least the Blue Cliff record. I forget the guy's name, but then 200 years later, somebody took what he had done and he published it as the Blue Cliff record with this guy's comments. And then over the years, there were other people that added to it, some of the different commentaries that come in capping verses and things like that. But the stuff I was reading pointed out that a lot of times there's contradictory stuff embedded within them. So it's almost like there are, these overlays of different stories, and you can interpret them different ways. So I did this in the process of my working with this. As first I understood it one way, then I understood it another way. Then I realized that wasn't right, and then yesterday I realized that it actually was kind of right the first time. But my take on it, which is possibly wrong, was that there's another Buddhist story, and I don't know if it was Bodhidharma or who it was, but somebody went to the guy that was sitting in a cave and said, my mind is not settled, settle it for me. And he said, show me your mind and I'll settle it for you. And so he went out and then later came back. In some stories he cut his arm off as an offering, but he came back later and said, I can't find my mind anywhere. And he said, there, I've settled it. So in that case, that's kind of the, this master that we think is there, but it's not really there. So the master, and then for me, the master that is there, and I probably don't like the word master because it makes it sound like it's external, but it is within me. There is a small, quiet voice that, that if I'm quiet enough, I can hear. And it is not really describable, but it is what I know to be true, kind of. And that's not, that sullies it right there just by saying that. But it is this, it is a different perspective, and it's not really me. It is, whatever tradition you're trying to couch it in, it is, it's the voice of God. And I didn't used to be able to say that, and now I can, but I could always say it is our inherent Buddha nature, and I can feel that. And so these actions then resonate with it. And for me, that's, what I'm kind of going for there, or what I'm thinking.
Thank you very much, Craig. Wonderful answer. Thank you.
So that's, it's now 13 past, so we've got 17 minutes left. So I think we have to have our dating game come to a close. So I'll ring us out. So thank you very much. I thought this was a lot of fun and really valuable. So thank you for our participants, both those offering and then those listening and responding and just being there to hear us.